Welcome to Playback with another episode of history. All right, so take a look at a world map, any map. You see that massive island up top? Greenland. It looks like an absolute giant, this continent of ice and rock. But here's the crazy part. It's owned by this tiny little country, Denmark. So yeah, let's dive into this map mystery. I mean, the scale of this is it's hard to wrap your head around. Greenland is over 2 million square kilometers. Denmark? A mere 43,000. To put that in perspective, you could cram almost 50 Denmarks inside Greenland. How on earth is that possible? Right? How did this happen? How did a country famous for its flat farmland and, Lego end up owning one of the most strategically important pieces of real estate in the Arctic? And this isn't just some dusty old story. It's super relevant, especially with leaders like Donald Trump offering to buy the island. And the answer, well, it's not simple. This was no accident, and it wasn't just some Vikings planting a flag and calling it a day. The real story is way more interesting. It's got a lost colony, a bitter separation between two kingdoms, and a huge legal battle that finally settled the whole thing. Okay, first things first, we have to get one thing straight. To really get the Danish claim, you have to understand who was actually there first. And spoiler alert, it was not the Danes. Not even close. For thousands of years, long before any European even knew Greenland existed, waves of Paleo-Inuit cultures were migrating over from North America. You had the saga, then the Dorset, and finally, around the 12th century, the Thule people arrived. And they are the direct ancestors of the modern Inuit, the true first people of Greenland. So how did Europeans get in on this? Well, it all starts with this guy, Eric the Red, a pretty colorful character. He was exiled from Iceland for murder, so he sails west in 982 AD. He finds this huge new land, sees some green in the fjords, and pulls off maybe the greatest real estate marketing stunt in history by calling it Greenland, just to attract more settlers. Now, for centuries, these Norse settlements were basically their own independent republic. But here's the part you absolutely have to remember. In 1261, they needed trade, they needed protection, so they swore an oath of allegiance to the King of Norway. I'm going to say it again, not Denmark, Norway. That detail is going to cause a lot of problems down the line. So if Greenland belongs to Norway, how does Denmark even get into this picture? Well, the whole thing starts when the Scandinavian kingdoms get all tangled up. And this is where a lost war somehow turns into a massive win. So, back in 1397, Denmark, Norway, and Sweden all decide to team up under one single monarch. It's called the Kalmar Union. And just like that, because Greenland belonged to Norway, the Danish crown now had a direct shared interest in this huge island. But then, something really weird happens. Around the 15th century, the Norse settlers in Greenland, they just vanish. To this day, we're not totally sure why. And for the next 300 years, Europe basically forgot the place even existed. It wasn't until 1721 that a Dano-Norwegian priest named Hans Egede sailed over there, hoping to find the descendants of those lost Vikings. Now, Egede didn't find any Vikings, but he did reestablish contact with the Inuit and started the whole modern colonization process. And crucially, his mission was funded by the joint Dano-Norwegian crown. This sets up the million-dollar question. If this royal marriage between Denmark and Norway ever ends in a divorce, who gets custody of Greenland? And oh boy, that divorce came in 1814. The Napoleonic Wars come to an end, and Denmark, well, they backed the wrong horse. They backed Napoleon. As punishment, the winners forced them to sign the Treaty of Kiel, which basically ordered Denmark to hand over the entire Kingdom of Norway to Sweden. But here, and this is just a brilliant move, buried deep in the fine print, the Danish negotiators managed to slip in a tiny little exception. The treaty says Denmark gives up Norway except for its old overseas colonies, Greenland, the Faroe Islands, and Iceland. And just like that, it was a done deal. I mean, Sweden didn't really care about a bunch of icy islands. They wanted mainland Norway. And Norway was too weak to do anything about it. So with the stroke of a pen, that 500-year-old link between Norway and Greenland was broken. Denmark lost a massive war, but somehow walked away with the biggest island in the world. But hold on, it wasn't quite over yet. The story has one last, super dramatic chapter. We have to fast forward another 100 years when the two countries would go head-to-head for one final showdown in court. By the early 1900s, Norway was kinda regretting how things went down. So in 1931, a group of Norwegian trappers lands on the totally uninhabited east coast of Greenland, plants a flag, and claims it for Norway. Their argument was pretty simple. Sure, Denmark has towns on the west coast, but that doesn't mean they have real authority over the entire island. Denmark immediately sued, and the whole mess went to the World Court at The Hague. The arguments were pretty clear. Norway went with history, claiming ancient rights going all the way back to the Vikings. Denmark argued something called effective sovereignty, basically saying, look, we've been running the government, the post office, and all the trade there for 200 years. It's ours. So, in 1933, the court finally reached a decision, and the winner was Denmark. The judges ruled that Danish control did in fact cover the whole island, not just the parts where people lived. Norway accepted the ruling, and that was it. Game over. So that is the long, complicated, and pretty wild history of how the Danish flag ended up flying over Greenland. But the story doesn't just end in 1933. The relationship between the two has changed dramatically since then, evolving into what's really a modern partnership. It's been a long road, for sure. After centuries of being a colony, Greenland officially became a county of Denmark in 1953. Then a huge step forward with Home Rule in 1979. And then a massive leap with the Self-Government Act of 2009. So today, Greenland is very much in charge of its own destiny. It runs its own police, its courts, and, most importantly, its incredible natural resources. Denmark still handles things like defense and foreign policy. It's a really unique kind of partnership, one that was forged by this just incredible and complex history. So, from Viking marketing ploys to sneaky treaty clauses, it's been quite a ride. What do you think is the single most surprising twist in this 1,000-year saga? Was it the disappearing colony? That brilliant move in the divorce treaty? Let us know what you think down in the comments. Hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive into a forgotten piece of Arctic history, make sure you're subscribed to Playback. We have a lot more fascinating stories from history just like this one coming your way. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next episode.